Welcome to AI Rounds, your weekly dose of AI in medicine and education.
We are your hosts, Dr. Nuria Negrão
and Dr. Morgan Leaf. Each week, we'll bring you a quick dive into the latest in artificial intelligence and how it's transforming healthcare, medical education, and medical communications.
From the tools changing how we teach, learn, and write, to breakthroughs shaping patient care. If it's new, exciting, or just plain useful, we're talking about it.
In just 10 to 15 minutes, we'll get you up to speed and maybe even spark your next big idea.
Let's make the rounds. Hi, Morgan. How are you doing?
Hi, Nuria. I'm good. How are you?
I am wonderful. And today we're going to be talking about how AI is changing the hiring process and job interviews and all of that, which is really interesting. I think we've heard a lot about it. An article recently published in QZ.com called How AI is Changing the Job Search and How to Make It Work for You. So we'll link this article in the show notes. But it was very interesting. Like, for example, it said that 74% of companies report that AI has improved the quality of the hires, and that 34% of companies say that they are relying on AI for job interviews. So, like, what did you think about the article? Just your general thoughts first.
Yeah. So, for our listeners who don't know, the other hat I wear, besides being a medical writer, is that I'm a resume writer and a LinkedIn profile writer and an interview coach. So, I try and keep my finger on the pulse of everything happening in the job market. And if you think AI has changed our industry with medical writing, that is nothing compared to what's going on in the job market. It's really changed everything. And it is not as new in that market either, because applicant tracking systems, which bigger companies use to evaluate incoming resumes, have been out there for years and years now with AI technology that evaluates a resume. So it's not new, but generative AI being used so much on the applicant side is new. And that's kind of what this article gets into. And AI interviews are new too. So maybe some of our listeners, and I'd love to hear about your experience if you want to tell us about it, if you've done an AI job interview, because those are very, very common now. So yes, the statistics strike me as very true. It's involved at every layer of the process. And what's interesting is almost the whole gist of this article is like people are submitting AI generated resumes and cover letters, and then an AI system is evaluating them. And like, yes, they are eventually getting better candidates, but it's devaluing those elements in the process. And there's another article we can drop in the show notes that's written by somebody at Wharton that talks about how cover letters are just useless now, because it used to be that a cover letter, if you sat down and wrote a really thoughtful cover letter that was specific to that job, that was an indication to the recruiter or the hiring manager that you were very interested in that job and you were more likely to get an interview because you sat down and took the time to write that very thoughtful cover letter. Now anybody can write a thoughtful cover letter. And so it's really no longer what it used to be. It's almost a must-have instead of being this extra cherry on the top of your resume that's boosting it.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
what does all that mean for people who are applying for jobs, for our fellow writers out there? Interestingly, what both writers of these articles conclude is that networking and making a personal connection with people has become more important than ever in this age of AI, because the AI is making everybody look the same. And the
Yeah.
way to stand out now is to figure out how to make a personal connection. So tell me your thoughts as an AI expert. What do you think about this?
So I think that this is very interesting. I had read articles before about people saying that like they're being flooded with resumes, like getting way more volume that they used to get before, and that was so. And I think the resumes are getting like are getting past the bots that have existed for so long. I remember when I was applying for a job, US.gov job, and they basically the advice that they gave me was lie. It was like, because you're not gonna pass the bot if you tell the truth. So you need to lie.
Mm.
And I remember like I didn't apply to almost any jobs, but the jobs that I did apply for, I felt like the process was very cumbersome from the point of view of the applicant, and very annoying that they wanted my resume, but they also wanted me to copy paste every section of my resume into their own system. And then I needed to use the keywords because otherwise the bot would kick me out. And I was just like, why can't we do a bot that like fights with their bots? So in the beginning, my thing was like, yay, finally, we the applicants now have a bot too. But what I think this means, I don't know. What I think this means is that it has leveled the playing field a little bit for applicants,
Mhm.
up to the point that everyone now has this, and it has not leveled the playing field for
Right.
applicants, right? So I
Exactly.
think the whole process is broken, and I don't know how to fix it, because if all we're going by is by relationships, then it is not. I mean, that depends a lot on you having the right relationships. So, like, for example, now I think about it like from the point of view of someone who is hiring, right? If I need to hire someone as a contractor to do something for me, if I go to places like Upwork or something like that, it is very overwhelming because there are so many people. So I end up relying in word of mouth. And like I ask you, like, do you know someone who does this type of work? And other friends, but that also feels like it depends on the quality of the contacts that my friends have. So I don't think that either way is the best way, and I don't know what the best way is. Maybe we should let the bot overlords figure out who the best candidate for the best position is, and we should just trust them. What do you think?
I mean, to a certain extent, yes. And I think the important context to exactly what you're just saying, though, is for people to remember, like your Hegons, AI is taking over the hiring process and blah, 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 blah. Most important thing to remember is pre AI, 80% of roles were filled by networking.
Okay.
That's a universal, well known statistic. So, when we're talking about the hiring process, as in you completely unknown applying for a job, that's really only 20% of what was going on out there in the job market to begin with, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, just remember that, because a lot of people that come to me for help with their resumes and LinkedIn profiles think that those two elements are going to be what gets them the job. And they're very important to have. They need to be great. But you also need to network to get those items to the right people. You're very unlikely to get a job simply by cold applying to it. It's
Mm-hmm.
possible and people do, but it's not your greatest chance of success.
Yeah.
So this only amplifies that. So instead of, because there were already so many people applying to
Yeah.
each job, right?
Yeah.
And so there still are so many people applying to each job. And now they have kind of identical resumes and cover letters.
Yeah.
So what can you do to stand out? The answer is still the same.
Mm-hmm.
Find a way to contact the hiring manager, find a way to contact the recruiter. An interesting suggestion in the article about cover letters being dead is if you have a reference from your past job. So this would apply, if you were laid off or something like that. It's not necessarily going to apply if you're trying to leave the job you currently work at. But if you have a reference and you can send that along, just like you're talking about, right? When I want to hire somebody, I look for a reference. If you could send that along in addition to a cover letter, that's going to make you stand out. That's personal. That's something that AI can't invent or make you look good, a personal recommendation from somebody. So it's still about networking. It's
Yeah.
still about getting that personal touch with people. You know, informational interviews kind of take you out for a coffee if you live nearby, but that is now more important than ever.
Yeah. And like this just made me remember about this other article that I sent you that I thought was really interesting from the Stanford Social Innovation Review. And the
Mhm.
title of the article was Welcome to the Era of Relational Intelligence. Like, as AI begins to transform education, work, and social life, we need to focus on developing and expanding capacities essential for human flourishing. And I feel like that ties in so perfectly with what you're talking about, where like we really need to develop these skills that used to be called like soft skills are becoming more and more and more important now with the age of AI, because it's all about the human connection and how well do we connect to other people. And I find that is really, in a sense, it's like an unexpected, beautiful thing about AI if it makes us more human with each other and less focused on like IQ type
Right.
intelligence. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I totally
Mhm.
agree. And another point in this article is about how now like you're saying, the in-person interview has become more important than it used to
Mhm.
be.
Yeah.
Because if everybody's putting out these fantastic AI generated resumes, you're going to have to really speak to what's in that resume when you go for an interview. So,
Yeah.
like, it goes without saying, but it does need to be said, your resume absolutely has to be true, right? It has to be accurate, has to be true, and you have to be able to discuss every single bullet point in there intelligently.
Mhm.
And now when you go for an in-person interview, instead of the interviewer asking you very, traditional questions, what's your worst quality, or some cheesy question that
Mhm.
you hear all the time in interviews where you have to make it sound like a bad qual. I'm too much of a perfectionist, right? They're going to ask now much more targeted questions.
Mhm.
So in this result that you mentioned here,
Mhm.
how did you achieve that for your team, or what systems did you put into place so
Mhm.
that they can see on the spot how you answer these very specific questions to speak to your skills and what you bring to the table and can offer to the company?
Yeah.
Because maybe your resume is trustworthy, maybe it's not, which to a certain extent has always been the case, but more so now than ever. So
Yeah.
really, if you get an in-person interview, be really, really, really prepared for that,
Mhm.
and know that you're probably gonna have to go through an AI interview to get there.
Gonna ask you about that. Yes.
Yeah, the key to the AI interviews is, and you mentioned this in one of our last episodes when we were talking about standardized patients, right?
Mhm.
We all naturally interact with AI differently than we do with humans. We're not actors, right? We
Mhm.
can't just interact with everything the same way.
Yeah.
And so the key in the AI interviews is to, first of all, always practice for them. And you can do that using AI. Have it do practice session with you. You want your answers not to be too long and wordy, and you want them to include keywords, because the interview that you generate with the AI is going to be combed by AI
Mhm.
to look for people who are using the key terms for that industry, for that role.
Yeah.
So make sure that you are speaking the language, being concise, and still being as personal as possible, because it is trying to judge you on your personality, actually. So those are the three things you want to keep in mind when you do an AI interview.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm just imagining an AI judging me on my personality. At first, you said like they're not gonna be asking those gotcha questions, and I was, oh yes, finally. And then you said the AI is gonna be judging your personality. I'm like, oh no, I'm back to being scared.
I know. It's like, I'm so glad that I have never had to do anything like this. I've never worked in the
Mhm.
corporate world, and I would always joke, because I work with a lot of physicians who are
Yeah.
transitioning to non-clinical careers. It's a whole different ballgame. Like clinical medicine, we purposely structure it so that
Yeah.
there's only as many jobs as there are of us, right?
Okay.
So
Uh-huh.
it's not hard to get a job.
Okay.
And I always joke, especially as a pediatrician, that our interview process is like, "Hey, oh my god, do you like kids? I like kids." And, like, that's it, because pediatricians just naturally are not asking each other hard-hitting questions. We have usually very perky, happy personalities, and that's it. So I never have been to a job interview where people were asking me like, "What's your worst quality?" or any of
Yeah.
these or behavioral
If
questions
you
or
were an animal, which animal would you be? A human
I would
being?
be one of my dogs because they live the good life.
Like,
Uh,
so hard. Okay. Thank you so much, Morgan. This was very insightful. I really appreciate and also very interesting. I think like there was an episode of Black Mirror where they would send the AI bots on like 100 dates to then decide who would be the perfect match.
wow.
So when we started talking about this, I was like, maybe we should have the AIs go like on 100 job interviews and then find the perfect fit, you know? Just let my AI go do its
You
thing,
know?
find me the perfect fit, and there you go.
Maybe that's where we're headed. We don't know. That might be exactly what we're talking about a couple years from now.
We'll see. Then I feel like that is like a lot of that's the thing that I talk against, which is like exporting the decision making to AI, and we
Mm,
don't want to do that. So
no,
yeah.
no, we don't. We don't.
All right, friend. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.